Hi and welcome to Short Times, where we bring you all the latest and greatest in movie reviews and recaps. Today, we're taking a closer look at the new animated film Pinocchio, a fresh take on the beloved classic tale. The movie starts off with Sebastian J. Cricket narrating the story of Geppetto, a woodcarver, and his son Carlo. They lived together and shared stories and worked on Geppetto's creations until World War I broke out. One day, Geppetto was hired to build a crucifix at the church, but they had to go home when enemy planes flew overhead and dropped bombs on nearby locations. Carlo ran back into the church to retrieve a pine cone he had dropped, and a bomb struck the church, killing Carlo in front of his father. Geppetto grieved for his son for many years, even after he buried the pine cone, and it grew into a tree over Carlo's grave. In his drunken grief, Geppetto chopped down the tree, which Sebastian had been living in, and brought a log of it back to his house. He started to carve a wooden boy, but never finished it. It was missing an ear, for example. Geppetto passed out, and Sebastian snuck into the house by hiding in the log. At night, several eyeball spirits entered the house and formed the body of the wood sprite. Using her magic, she gave life to the puppet, which she named Pinocchio. Sebastian protested this, but the wood sprite offered him a wish in exchange for guiding Pinocchio in his life. Sebastian agreed, hoping to use the wish to gain fame and wealth. In the morning, Geppetto woke up to find Pinocchio alive and playing around the house. He was shocked to see a talking wooden boy and a cricket, but Pinocchio was excited by everything in the house. Geppetto had to go to church, so he locked Pinocchio in the closet and told him to stay there. Despite Sebastian's suggestion to do as Geppetto said, Pinocchio's curiosity got the better of him, and he left to join Geppetto at church. Later, Pinocchio enters a church and surprises the congregation with his presence. Despite declaring himself to be a real boy made of flesh and bone, his nose begins to grow, causing shock and disgust among those present. Geppetto, Pinocchio's creator, takes him home, where they are visited by the Podesta, a local official, and a priest, along with the Podesta's son, Candlewick. The group discusses ways to turn Pinocchio into a model citizen, fearing that he may pose a threat to society. However, Pinocchio becomes restless and begs for some hot chocolate, which Geppetto allows him to have. As he sits with Candlewick, Pinocchio imitates his actions and ends up sticking his feet in the fireplace, causing his legs to catch fire. Geppetto quickly puts out the flames and dips Pinocchio in a water bucket to cool him down, but his legs have already been burned off. The Podesta orders Geppetto to send Pinocchio to school, and he agrees. That night, Pinocchio's friend Sebastian tells him about Carlo, a person that Geppetto still mourns. The next day, Pinocchio goes to help Geppetto at the church, but he is spotted by a white monkey called Spazzatura, who belongs to a showrunner named Count Volpe. Volpe's circus has been struggling in recent times, and he sees Pinocchio as a potential star attraction. As Pinocchio heads to school, he is intercepted by Volpe, who persuades him to join the circus and become famous. Pinocchio signs a contract and joins Volpe and Spazzatura. He is well received by the audience as a singing puppet with no strings. Geppetto finds out from the Podesta that Pinocchio never made it to school, and tracks him down at the circus. As Pinocchio continues to lie, his nose grows longer each time, amusing the other children. A disagreement arises between Volpe and Geppetto over where Pinocchio belongs, and they begin pulling on him, causing him to fly into the street and be hit by a car, killing him. Pinocchio wakes up in the afterlife, where he is greeted by a group of black rabbits. They tell him that he needs to speak with Death, a being responsible for sorting out the fates of the deceased. Death, who is the sister of the wood sprite that brought Pinocchio to life, is unhappy about her sister's actions. She explains to Pinocchio that since he is not a real boy, he can continue to die and come back to life after certain periods of time. She also warns him that he will outlive everyone close to him. Pinocchio comes back to life in front of a group of people that includes Geppetto, Volpe, and the Podesta. The Podesta thinks that Pinocchio's immortality could make him a valuable soldier in the war, but Volpe claims that Pinocchio belongs to him because of the contract he signed, and asserts that Geppetto owes him money. Geppetto takes Pinocchio home, and they get into an argument, because Pinocchio wants to join the war, and Geppetto calls him a burden. This makes Pinocchio sad, but Sebastian tries to reassure him. In an attempt to help his father financially, Pinocchio runs off to join the circus, trapping Sebastian under a cup to prevent him from following. He asks Volpe to send his earnings to Geppetto, but Volpe agrees, even though he has no intention of doing so. Geppetto finds Sebastian after he freed himself, but was knocked unconscious, and discovers that Pinocchio has left. After feeling sorry for himself, Sebastian scolds Geppetto for how he treated Pinocchio, and points out that the boy gave him love, while Geppetto made him feel bad. They decide to go and find Pinocchio themselves, taking a boat to an island where he might be headed, but they are both eaten by a sea monster. Pinocchio continues to be a success in Volpe's show. Spazzatura, using marionettes, tells Pinocchio that Volpe is not actually sending money to Geppetto, and is only using him, and also mentions that Spazzatura is Volpe's favorite. Pinocchio does not believe that Volpe would do this, but Volpe overhears the conversation and beats Spazzatura for trying to turn Pinocchio against him. Pinocchio confronts Volpe about his treatment of the monkey, and Volpe shows his true colors, stating that he is the master of both Pinocchio and Spazzatura, and threatening them if they try to go against him again. Volpe puts on a show for the Italian Prime Minister, Benito Mussolini, who is known to enjoy puppets. Pinocchio performs a crude skit to mock Mussolini in front of Volpe as revenge. While the children in the audience find it amusing, Mussolini is not pleased and orders Pinocchio to be shot and the circus to be burned down. Pinocchio returns to the afterlife and waits to be revived once more. Pinocchio comes back to life on his way to a fascist training camp with the Podesta and Candlewick. While there, he becomes friends with Candlewick, who confides in him about his feelings towards his father, and how he is trying to mold him into his image, and force him to fight in a pointless war. They play a game of capture the flag using paintball guns and have fun, but when they declare a tie, the Podesta orders Candlewick to shoot Pinocchio with a real gun to break the tie. Planes then fly overhead to attack. When the Podesta persists in demanding that Candlewick pick up the gun, Candlewick stands up to him for the first time. The Podesta tries to shoot Pinocchio himself, but Candlewick hits him with a paintball gun and traps him in a net, just as he watches a bomb drop on him in the school. Pinocchio is thrown into the ocean but is rescued by Volpe and Spazzatura. The Count ties Pinocchio to a cross and prepares to burn him for ruining his show and embarrassing Mussolini. Pinocchio pleads with Spazzatura, and the monkey finally turns against his master. He frees Pinocchio and tackles Volpe off a cliff, where he lands on a rock, and Spazzatura falls into the ocean. Pinocchio jumps in after him, and they are both swallowed by the same sea monster that got Geppetto and Sebastian. Pinocchio reunites with Geppetto, and comes up with a plan to escape the monster. He starts telling enough lies to make his nose grow big enough to reach the monster's blowhole. As he makes his way over, he falls with Geppetto, but the monster blows them all out of the hole. The monster then goes after Pinocchio, who has found a sea mine, and gets the monster to attach it to its tooth. The monster then charges towards Geppetto, Sebastian, and Spazzatura, but Pinocchio activates the mine and blows the monster to pieces. When Pinocchio reaches the afterlife, he begs Death to let him go back faster to save Geppetto, but she warns him that if he breaks the rules, he will become mortal and will not come back to life. Pinocchio shatters the Hercules that sends him back, so he goes back immediately to save Geppetto from drowning. Everyone reaches the shore, but Pinocchio is dead for good. Geppetto cries for his son, and the wood sprite appears behind him. She tells Geppetto that Pinocchio's sacrifice for him made him a real boy, but he cannot come back. Sebastian then uses his wish to bring Pinocchio back to life, and the wood sprite grants it. Pinocchio returns and is happily embraced by all. Sebastian finishes his story by saying that Pinocchio had many wonderful experiences with Geppetto, Spazzatura, and himself. However, as Death warned him, everyone Pinocchio loves will eventually die, and one by one, Geppetto, Sebastian, and Spazzatura all pass away. Once Pinocchio is left alone, he sets off on a new adventure. During the credits, Sebastian is shown telling the stories to the Black Rabbits before breaking into song. Pinocchio is a beautifully animated and heartwarming reimagining of the classic tale, with exciting adventures, lovable characters, and valuable lessons about honesty and loyalty. This film is sure to delight audiences of all ages. We highly recommend checking it out. Whether you're a fan of the original story, or just looking for a new and exciting family film. Thank you for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for more movie reviews and news on Short Times.